Everything in this video is 100% free. There's no course to buy, there's no upsell at the end, just everything I know about going from zero to ranking first in Google and making money with e-commerce SEO. In the last 12 months alone, we've added an additional $1.5 million in revenue for the brands that we've been working with, and that's all growth from organic Google search. And these are all real results with no shortcuts. So this exact process has been used across multiple brands, like this first one here where we've added $140,000 in monthly organic revenue in just 12 months, going from $83,000 to $223,000. An Australian brand where we've gone from 16 to 36, doubling the amount of revenue they make from organic Google search in just 8 months. And this is all done with zero paid ads, so it's 100% organic. There's no shortcuts, there's no ad spend. Every dollar growth came from ranking higher in Google. In this video, I'm going to break down my entire process, start to finish, so you can understand how you can make more money with e-commerce SEO. So let's jump straight in. So the first thing we need to cover is understanding how Google actually works for e-commerce. So that's what this whole section is about. And before you do anything on your site, you need to actually make sure that you understand Google's real mission. And it's actually simpler than most people think. Google's entire job is to show the person searching the most relevant and trustworthy result for whatever they typed in. So you need to think beyond just your products and just your collections. You need to actually understand what a searcher on Google is doing and therefore what Google's job is with that. So the job is not to rank the most technically perfect website. It's not to rank the site with the most backlinks. It's to rank the page with the best answers to what that person is looking for. And so when you understand that, every SEO decision becomes much simpler. Every page you build, every piece of content you write, every link that you earn should be making your site more relevant and more trustworthy for the people who are searching for your products. And the whole idea here is to match buyers with different stores. So when someone searches for something like wood-fired pizza oven, Google knows that that user wants to buy one or wants to actually find a page with pizza ovens that they can browse on. And so it's going to rank the store that best proves that it sells exactly that and exactly what the user is searching for, and also has the authority to back that up, because there can be hundreds of websites that do exactly that, sell wood-fired pizza ovens, have that on their page, but the authority behind that website is where the difference really comes from. And so why this is a huge opportunity is because most of the competitors aren't doing this properly, and there are brands showing up in the search results that aren't necessarily better than you. They've just simply done the work to show Google that they deserve to be there. And so the longer you've been in business for, the more authority that your brand has obviously helps. But fundamentally, if you understand this and you create the pages, you create the content and do the fundamental SEO things correctly, you can show up above these quote unquote bigger brands. So the fundamental difference between SEO and paid ads is renting space versus owning it. So most e-commerce brands will start with paid ads and think about SEO later, which is understandable because when you pay for ads, you generally get that money back relatively quickly. But it creates this problem. And the problem is paid ads, as I said, you're renting visibility. So the moment you stop paying, the traffic stops. You don't get customers to your website, you don't make sales. And every sale that you make has a cost attached to it. And that cost goes up over time as more brands compete for the same ad space. And ultimately, to get more customers, the only thing you can do is slightly optimize your ad accounts, but mostly you have to spend more. There's only so much you can get for a certain amount of ad spend. So to get more customers, you need to spend more. SEO, on the other hand, is building an asset. And so a collection page that you optimize today will keep ranking and generating revenue for years. A backlink you earn in month 2 will still work in month 24. And all this work just goes into the last point here, which is compounding returns. The longer that you do SEO, the bigger the returns get. And unlike paid ads, the returns don't stop when you stop spending. They just compound and they continue to grow. And I'm working with a brand that shows this exactly. So the brand that I work with, they relied heavily on Google Ads as their main revenue driver. And it was working. They were getting lots of money from it. But every sale had that cost attached to it. And when we started with SEO, they were making 83 grand from organic revenue. So doing really well from organic revenue, but they hadn't done any SEO. And so as they were driven by Google Ads, they understood there was search intent there. Their products were high margin. They had lots of different product variations. So there was just heaps of opportunity there. And we've turned that into $223,000 in monthly recurring revenue for this brand 12 months later. So that's a 47x return on investment, all from SEO, which is a figure that I don't believe is seen very often, if at all, in paid ads. And so if it is, let me know in the comments below. But this is the difference with SEO versus paid ads. There is just this compounding return with it, and that's why we focus on it so much. So the key takeaway here is actually understanding what Google wants to do and how Google works for your e-commerce store. And so if this has made you realize that your store is leaving organic revenue on the table, that's exactly what I do. Click the first link in the description down below. You can book a call and we can look at your site together and see how we can turn organic revenue and Google SEO into a profitable channel for your brand. So now that we have an understanding of what Google's job is trying to do, the second thing I want to focus on with e-commerce SEO is keyword research, and more importantly, how to find the right keywords for your store. So keyword research is the foundation of everything that you do with SEO, and if you get this part wrong, then nothing else really matters. And so the goal here is not to necessarily just find the highest searched keywords, it's to find keywords with real buying intent that your site has a genuine chance of ranking for, and ultimately is actually going to bring sales to your store. And so firstly, the right way to think about keyword volume is the amount of searches that a specific keyword has in Google. The common mistake is chasing high volume keywords that are dominated by brands with years of authority. They're much more difficult to rank for, and targeting them when you're starting out means you're not necessarily going to rank for them for months, if not years. And so you potentially waste a lot of effort with no return for a long time when you chase these higher volume and higher difficulty keywords. And so the smart approach is targeting keywords with anywhere from 30 to like 2,000 searches a month, especially in Australia, where I'm from. Keyword volume is much lower than in the US or the UK. And so these lower volume keywords, they generally have much easier difficulty. So I like to look for difficulty under 30, and that's kind of a Ahrefs and SEMrush metric. But they might seem small individually, but when you rank for hundreds of these across your product range, the traffic can really add up. And more importantly, it converts because the intent behind these keywords is much more exact and kind of specific to what your customers search for compared to these larger volume keywords. So I use Ahrefs, and so you can do this with pretty much any keyword tool, but basically the concept here is to start by typing in your main product category and then looking at all the related keywords from there. So that's generally what I do. We type your main product category or product collection into Ahrefs and explore all the related keyword suggestions that appear. And then what I'm looking for is transactional and maybe commercial intent, because that shows that the searcher of that keyword actually wants to buy. Transactional keyword obviously makes sense. They're transacting with that product. And so those are the keywords that actually make money in e-commerce. So that's what we want to focus on. And then I also want to filter by difficulty and volume. So apply these kind of filters in Ahrefs, find all these keywords in that kind of 100 to 2,000 range. Sometimes the lower ones, like I said, 30 to 50 to 70 searches a month. And that's where we find all these high value keywords. So again, another example, there's a food brand that I work with where every individual product on their store has its own like specific keywords. Rather than ranking for big collection page terms, we targeted individual products and keywords, and some had as little as 10 to 20 searches a month. Some had up to 1,000 to 5,000 searches a month. But apply this across hundreds of products, and that becomes a significant amount of traffic to this store. And so again, you just need to be specific and smart about the keywords that you're finding and actually think about your products and how it works. And is it collection pages? Is it product pages? Where are you applying all these different keywords? So to understand how to actually apply these keywords, you need to understand search intent. And this is one of the most important concepts in kind of SEO in general, but specifically keyword research. And so every keyword has an intent behind it, and matching your page type to that intent is a non-negotiable. And so the 4 types of search intent are below, but for e-commerce, there's only 2 that really matter. So first we have informational. So how to season a cast iron pan is an informational query. People there are just trying to learn something. We're not focusing on those, not primary target anymore. AI and YouTube and other things like that have taken over on those keywords, and it's not really a part of my SEO strategy these days with our e-commerce brands. Number 2 is navigational. So this is people searching for a specific brand or website, then trying to navigate to a specific location. Again, that's not really our primary target. We don't really focus on those at all. Number 3 is commercial. So these are people that are comparing, products or comparing things before they buy. So for example, best cast iron pans 2025, 2026. Those we target with potentially blogs or listicle content, sometimes with collection pages, but most of the time that's kind of the middle of funnel content right there. And then the final type of keyword is transactional. So that's if someone's searching cast iron pan, that person is ready to buy. They're looking for pages to compare actual products. So those are what we target with collection pages and product pages. And so if you put the wrong type of page in front of the wrong intent, well, Google is actually just not going to show it. So it's not going to rank you no matter how well you optimize. So you need to understand the search intent behind a keyword. Even if you think it's what you should be ranking for, you need to make sure that Google and the rest of the pages on there are actually doing the same thing, because if they're not, there's no chance you're going to rank for it. So a real example here is searching for wood-fired pizza oven. The number 1 result is an e-commerce store where you can buy pizza ovens, and so it has the collection page there with all these different pizza ovens that you can look at. Wikipedia, which is one of the most authoritative websites on the internet, sits on page 4 or 5 with like a kind of blog thing about pizza ovens, but it doesn't rank higher because the person searching for wood-fired pizza oven, they want to buy one. They're not there to read some sort of encyclopedia entry. And so Google is always going to reward the page that best matches the intent, no matter how authoritative your website is. And the fastest way to check search intent, if you don't have any tool, is just to search the keyword that you're thinking about in Google and look at what is ranking. So if it's collection pages and product pages, then it's likely transactional. And so you want to build a collection page, or you want to focus on a product page for that keyword. If it's blog posts, then obviously build a blog and not a product page. You need to understand that Google is kind of the blueprint for what you're doing. So if you search a keyword and it shows you what it wants, then that's kind of what you should base it off. And so a mix of both. If you get, do a search term and it's blog posts and collection pages or whatever, then generally a well-optimized collection page will usually win if you have all this other content on there as well. And so again, just look at Google, look at the blueprint there, because it tells you what it needs and tells you what it wants. So we're understanding search intent, we're understanding what keywords we want to focus on. And once you have these, you need to map each single keyword to the right page on your site. And so for e-commerce, generally what we do is we follow this kind of hierarchy, and I do this for every single brand. We make sure that every page on your website is intentional with what it's targeting. So there's kind of 4 different ways we approach this. The first one is your broad category terms. So these are the ones that are going on your kind of top level main collection pages. So they're the, running shoe, weightlifting belt, Ugg boots, gold necklaces, things like that. They're the broader terms that are specific to a collection. Then we've got your subcategory or sub-collection keywords. And obviously they go on the sub-collection pages, and they're slightly more specific than these broader ones, and they have a higher search intent. And so instead of just running shoes, we've got women's running shoes, we've got leather weightlifting belt, wood-fired pizza ovens, platform Ugg boots, and gold necklaces for men. So it's still quite generic, but it's just getting that little bit more specific. And so we can create, this is where a lot of the money is missed in e-commerce, is making all of these very specific pages for all these very specific terms. Then we've got product keywords. So these are highly specific search terms mapped to your product pages. Now, depending on your type of niche, product pages will either be a big part of your SEO strategy, like I said before with like a food brand example. But if you're like a clothing brand, then generally not as involved, but we still want to make sure that the keyword is mapped to that page so it doesn't interfere with everything else. And so, Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 40 or mini chestnut platform Ugg boots, these are much more specific. There's probably not many people searching for these type of keywords, but if we still map them to a product page, it makes the rest of our content strategy much cleaner, and Google understands where it fits in your kind of keyword and topical map as a whole. And then finally, your comparison or best of keywords. And so these really are for your blog posts. And so, best running shoes for flat feet, or leather versus nylon weightlifting belts, different things like that aren't transactional. They're not necessarily commercial, but they still play a part in building topical authority and things like that. So those are where we apply those type of keywords. And one of the biggest takeaways to take from all of this is each page on your site should have one primary keyword that it is optimized for and no more. So trying to rank one page for multiple unrelated keywords will confuse Google about what the page is about. And so one page, one primary keyword, and then supported by related secondary keywords in the content. But you don't need to focus on those as much in terms of really pushing that. If you do it naturally and if you do it correctly, it's going to work out anyway that those keywords are going to get picked up from this page if you build the content correctly. So just make sure that you focus every single page with one keyword, and also don't necessarily try and rank multiple pages for the same keyword. That's just going to confuse Google even more, and then you're not going to get any page ranking. So before you start optimizing anything on your site, you need to do a full keyword map of your entire site. And this becomes your strategic roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months if you do it correctly. So you want to map through all your collection pages, assign a primary keyword based on your research to all your high priority pages. Do that as well with your product pages and assign each product a specific product keyword. Focus on pages with high commercial value first as well. Then you want to identify your blog content gaps. So identify which commercial and informational keywords need blog content creative to then support your collection and product pages with your overall topical authority. And then finally, you need to execute your roadmap. So now that you have this keyword map, and just do it in a Google Sheet or something like that, then it tells you exactly which pages need to be created, which ones need to be optimized, and which need supporting content built around them to boost their overall ranking in general and their topical authority. So those are the first 2 chapters of my e-commerce SEO guide. And I just wanted to break here and kind of recaps before we move on to actually optimizing your site. So first of all, Google rewards relevance and trust. So every SEO decision should make your site more relevant and more trustworthy to the people searching for your products. Technical perfection is not necessarily the first thing you should focus on, which is why I haven't put it in chapter 1 or 2. That's coming up next. But focus on building relevance and building trust for your brand. Secondly, SEO compounds, whereas ads don't. So paid ads rent visibility. SEO can build an asset, and the longer you invest in SEO, the bigger and more compounding those returns become, as proven by the case study I showed where we have a 47x ROI. So third, you want to focus on search intent and not volume. So focus on keywords with lower search volume and also a difficulty that's under 30. So they may be small individually, but they become massive collectively when you do this across your entire site, especially if you have a large product range. And the most important thing is they convert because the intent of those keywords is exact compared to these broader category terms with high search volume and much more difficult. And finally, match your page type to that intent. So collection pages for your transactional keywords, blog posts for commercial or informational keywords, and also make sure one page, one primary keyword is always how you should approach your keyword research. And then finally, build your keyword map, and that is your roadmap for the 6 to 12 months. So now that we've got that, we've got all the keywords, we've got everything that we know Google is looking for, we can now actually apply it to our site, and that's going to move us into the next chapters moving forward here. So chapter 3 is all about technical SEO and why technical SEO matters, but it's not necessarily the thing that you should prioritize. So technical SEO, it gets talked about a lot more than it necessarily deserves to be. For most brands, focus on it too much at the expense of things that actually drive your revenue. And so what technical SEO does not do, a perfect technical score does not get you to position 1. Technical SEO alone does not make you money, and chasing technical perfection wastes time and budget. And what actually gets you to position 1 is the right content on the right pages, the right authority behind those pages, and technical SEO simply ensures Google can find and crawl your site properly. So I'm not saying it's not important, it definitely is. However, a lot of SEO agencies and SEO people I see online focus on this way too much just to try and sell you on these big packages and confuse you with things that aren't actually going to make you more money. So technical SEO is all about kind of crawling your website basically. And so what we need to do is we need to understand crawl budget. And so crawl budget is the number of times Google will crawl your URLs for within any given period. And it is a finite resource that needs to be spent wisely. So Google doesn't just have unlimited resources to crawl all these different links and all these different URLs on your site. And so every website gets given a crawl budget. And so the whole point of technical SEO is to make sure you maximize your crawl budget so it's crawling the most important pages and it's not crawling pages that don't matter. And so large e-commerce sites with thousands of URLs must ensure Google spends its budget on the important pages, as I just said, and not on broken or duplicate ones. And so even though technical SEO, I say, is not as important as you might think, the risk is having an inefficient crawling kind of output. And so if Google cannot crawl your site effectively, you're wasting crawl budget on URLs that don't matter, and they're starving your best pages of attention. So that is the kind of idea behind technical SEO, and that's why we need to understand crawl budget. And so for e-commerce, there's a list of technical issues worth fixing, and I think that they're relatively specific and short. And so the ones that I focus on are right here. And so first is duplicate content. That's the biggest issue for e-commerce. Is a lot of brands and brand owners will copy and paste their product templates across hundreds of pages, and therefore you have all this duplicate content, and that dilutes your ranking ability across all those pages. And so you want to fix your unique, you want to give unique content specific to every single product and collection to avoid that duplication. The second thing is having missing or duplicate H1s. So every page needs exactly one H1 containing the target keyword. If you have multiple, that confuses Google. If you don't have any at all, that forces Google to guess what the page is about instead of being told directly. So you want to make sure that you update that. Broken internal links is also a massive issue that I see. Google follows an internal link on a page to another page, and if that goes to a broken page, then you're wasting your crawl budget, and so you lose trust in. Google loses trust in your whole site structure, and so you want to clean these up systematically as you go through. Ideally, fixing the most important ones at the very beginning, and most of the time it's not that many. Like if you run an audit, which we'll talk about in a second, you can fix all these pretty quickly. And then finally is thin content pages. So a collection page with just a heading or a product grid can be kind of deemed as thin content. And so ultimately, if you've got a page that doesn't really serve a purpose, Google's not necessarily going to prioritize that page. And so they need to be addressed as part of your on-page optimization work, which we'll talk about in a couple of sections time. So how do you actually run a technical audit? Well, there are two tools that I use. They're Screaming Frog and Ahrefs. Together, they give you a pretty complete picture of every issue on your site. So with Screaming Frog, what you want to do, you can download a free version or you can pay for it. I still use the free version. You don't really need a full version if you're just doing with smaller e-commerce sites. But you can plug your URL in, it crawls your entire site and services every URL, every H1, every meta title, broken link, duplicate pieces of content. It kind of gives you everything there. So you want to run a full crawl and export the results, and then you can just sort the issues and start with the ones that are affecting the most pages first. And also it kind of gives you a list of the high priority ones. So it kind of tells you which ones you should focus on. So that's an easy way to do it. If you have access to Ahrefs as well, this is paid, but it pretty much does the same thing as Screaming Frog, but it also kind of shows you some SEO impact for each one. Take it with a grain of salt, but this gives you a little bit more data sometimes to show exactly what you should focus on. And so focus on issues with high impact score first, and then initially ignore the low impact technical warnings, as these aren't necessarily as crucial. And those are the kind of things that a lot of agencies will use to confuse you into paying for all these unnecessary fixes, when really they don't actually matter and they're not going to change the outcome of your business and how much money you're making with SEO. And so the order that I like to kind of work through is fixing up all the duplicate content, fixing all broken links and all your H1 issues, and then ultimately fixing all your crawl settings. And so I like to do it in this way because if we can fix up our crawlability of our site, we want to make sure that everything prior to that is sorted. So then once Google starts crawling the site, it's not running into all these issues. So when I take on a new brand, we want to focus on those things first, work through the audit in that order is what I like to do. Also make sure that your robot.txt file is not accidentally blocking pages that you want Google to crawl, and also that your sitemap is submitted to Google Search Console and is up to date. And also you need to set up 301 redirects for any URLs that have been changed. This is basically a way to tell Google that, hey, this URL used to be this, now it's this, please go to that page instead. So if you're changing a URL, make sure you fix all your internal links to that new page. And if you have those 301 redirects set up, make sure you've included that. And then finally, every page needs a H1 with the target keyword in it. So then all these URLs that are being crawled know where they're going. And honestly, that is kind of all I really do with technical SEO for e-commerce stores. If you're working with a 6, 7, maybe even 8-figure Shopify store, then there isn't that much that is really going to need addressing that is going to update your organic revenue channel. And so technical SEO is the foundation that makes everything else work properly. And so you want to make sure you fix the issues that matter, ignore all the other noise, and then redirect your energy towards the work that is actually going to drive your revenue, which is going to come up in these next chapters. But if you want someone to handle the audit for you and all the fixes, click the first thing in the description below. We can run a live audit together on a call and see where you're missing out on things. So we understand what Google wants to do. We understand how to find the right keywords. And now we understand that we need to optimize our site technically so that Google can actually crawl it. Well, now we're getting on to the meat of actually how you can increase your organic search revenue. And that's chapter 4 here, which is your collection page optimization. And this arguably is the biggest revenue lever that you can do with an e-commerce store. And so collection pages are where e-commerce SEO money is made and where almost every brand is the weakest. And so the most common version that I see during audits is a heading, a product grid, and nothing else. Now, what Google sees when it looks at that is almost nothing about the page. It doesn't really have any context, doesn't know who it's for, doesn't know why it deserves to rank. And so you want to make sure that you put content above and below the product grid, have internal links, have FAQs, and everything structured to give Google the full context of your page. And this is a huge opportunity because it can be the single biggest lever for your e-commerce store in bringing in more organic sales. And a lot of competitors are not doing it properly. So pay attention to this chapter here if you want to actually increase your organic revenue. So before I tell you what you actually need to do, this is not just a hypothetical. This is actually working with e-commerce brands right now. And this is a brand that I've worked with where they started at $16K a month. They had a few unoptimized collections when we started. But then once we came on board, we made more collections, we added more content to each page, internal links, FAQs, all the works like that. And they went from 16 to 36K after 180 days of work together. So an organic revenue growth of 2.25x, all from this kind of collection page optimization. And I know it's from that because we can see the increase in traffic came directly to the collection pages. So this isn't just hypothetical, this stuff actually works. So the exact structure that I use to rank collection pages is these kind of 5 core elements here. And so if you miss any one of them, then you're leaving ranking potential on the table. So the first thing, target keyword in the H1. Once you've got your target keyword, make sure it's in that title of your collection page. Not just shop our range, not just all collections or all products, whatever, but wood-fired pizza ovens or silver men's necklace. So you want to describe exactly what the collection is about, and ideally have a highly relevant keyword as that title. Then number 2 is intro paragraph before the product grid. So even just 50 to 100 words directly under the H1, and you want to make sure that you're just introducing your collection. And if you can include your target keyword naturally in the first sentence, that's just a second signal to Google about what this page is about. Because sometimes it doesn't automatically crawl all the way to the bottom of your page. So if you can put that there, it's just another kind of reassurance to Google about what the page is about. Number 3 is having a content block below the product grid. So 200 to 400 words covering the collection. Include secondary keywords, answer common buyer questions, add internal links to relevant collections, and also FAQ section. This is where you kind of beef out your collection page and give more context to Google, but also answer their questions for your customers. Now, the point with all of this, which I'll talk about throughout really, we're doing this to rank higher in Google, but you're not writing for Google specifically. If you start to write and start to kind of tweak things to try and manipulate the system, you're not going to rank. You need to make sure that you're thinking about your customer first and you kind of apply these principles second. The 4th thing here is an optimized meta title and description. Have your target keyword in both, have the meta title less than 55 characters, the description under 150, 155 characters, and then write the description like an ad. Like this is the first thing that people read in the Google search results before they decide to click on your results. You need to make sure that you optimize this correctly to give exactly what the user is looking for and understand what is on the other side of that click, and also make sure that you're optimizing for the click and writing it like an ad. And then the 5th thing is having the target keyword in your URL. So if you can set this from the very beginning before the page goes live or before you have built any real authority on that page, then that's much better. Because if you change URL on a live site, you have to set up 301 redirects, and then your authority kind of starts from 0. And so it does kind of limit how well you can kind of optimize that page or how long it's going to take. So if you can do this from the beginning, it's going to be much better off. So most Shopify themes don't have kind of a built-in way to add this kind of long description below the product grid that I talk about. So here's exactly how you can do it. First of all, you want to create a meta field. So if you go to content in the Shopify admin on the left panel, then meta objects, manage, select collections, and then add a new definition. From there, we're going to set up a rich text field. And so name it, collection page, long description, or whatever helps you. And then set up the type as rich text. So that when you have rich text, this allows you to have H2s and H3s and build out a proper content structure. And then it will also appear at the bottom of every single collection page in kind of the admin section. And then what you want to do is then add the custom liquid section to that page. So go to your online store, your themes, customize, and then find your collection template and add a section below the product grid, select custom liquid, and then paste in the liquid code to pull in this new meta field content. So the liquid code is fairly simple. You can get ChatGPT to write it for you, or I've put it in the description below, so you can just copy it from there. Just make sure that you change out the actual name that you've selected. So collection page, long description, or whatever you've named it, make sure that you optimize that there. So this is all well and good, but what you actually need to do is write content that actually ranks. And the content on your collection page needs to serve 2 audiences simultaneously. It needs to serve Google and it needs to serve the buyer. And so if you can get both right, then you win. And so you may be thinking, well, I'm doing all this. I'm writing content on my pages. I'm putting internal links. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. Why am I not ranking? And these might be the reasons why you're not. So when you're writing for Google, you want to include your target keyword and your related secondary keywords naturally throughout the content there, naturally being the keyword right there. Do not stuff keywords in awkwardly. You want to make sure that you're writing naturally and that they will appear on their own. Secondary keywords are related terms that people might also search for the same product. So again, don't try to manipulate this, just make sure that it is natural. So for example, if you've got a collection page that is targeting the keyword wood-fired pizza ovens, some secondary keywords might be outdoor pizza ovens or wood-burning pizza oven or portable pizza oven. And you want to make sure that you just naturally incorporate that into your content down below. And then when you're writing for a buyer, you want to make sure you're answering the questions of what makes this product different from your competitors, what should they look for when choosing within this category, what are the most common questions people ask about this type of product. And then these questions become your FAQ section and help you rank for different question-based searches. So again, making sure you're writing naturally, you're actually answering questions for buyers, and you're just applying these principles so Google can also understand and rank this page for you. So to speed up this process these days, we can use AI to write content for us. And there's definitely a right way and a wrong way. And so a common mistake that I see is having unedited AI content that brands will just publish on their website. And so Google can identify thin or unedited AI content, and it can penalize your site's overall performance. And so if you just paste raw AI output directly onto your pages, then it's just a risk not worth taking. The right approach is use AI to write a first draft very quickly, and then you can edit it to sound like your brand, add specific product details, and make sure that it reads naturally. So the goal here is to have content that is helpful and specific, not just content that exists to have words on a page. So make sure if you're using AI, you're still editing it, you're still putting your tone of voice in and your brand's kind of voice, and that you're actually making sure that the content is good and worthy of being on your page, not just publishing it for the sake of having content. And so content that is generally useful to the buyer is also the content that Google wants to rank. So these two are not, in conflict. They are the same thing. They are the same goal that we're trying to achieve. Now, this takes us on to chapter 5, which is internal linking. And I think this is the most underrated thing in e-commerce SEO. And so if there's one thing that most SEO providers skip or do wrong, I think it's internal linking. And so if you do it correctly, it is the highest impact, lowest cost action that you can take once your pages have content on them. And so the benefit here, there's no external outreach needed. It does not require any external outreach. It doesn't require any budget, and it's not really a technical skill. Like, it's relatively easy to do. Secondly, it signals page importance. So when you do this correctly, it tells Google which pages are the most important on your site, and it directs authority exactly where you want. Whereas if you do this wrong, it can actually hurt you. So if you link from collection pages back up to blog posts, this will signal to Google that blogs are more important than collections, and that's not what we want to do. And also, if you just link for the sake of linking, similar to writing content for the sake of writing content, you're not going to get the outcome that you desire. So let's get into the internal linking. So firstly, we always want to link down our funnel. And when we say funnel, we're talking top of funnel, blog posts, middle of funnel, collection pages, and bottom of funnel, product pages. So our internal links should reflect this and direct users to the product pages, because that's where we're going to make money. And when we do that, we signal to Google that these are the most important pages. And so if you never reverse back with your internal links going from product to collection or collection to blog posts, and make sure that you're directing straight down your funnel, that's going to really significantly improve your internal linking strategy. And then also, your homepage is the most powerful page on your entire site from an internal linking perspective. And so whatever it links to gets the most authority passed on to it. And so you want to make sure that you link directly to your highest priority collections and not your blog or your About Us page or things like that. So how can you actually build your internal linking structure? Well, first, start with your homepage. Link to the top 5 to 10 collections directly from your homepage in your navigation menu, obviously, but more importantly, in your on-page content above the fold as well, if you can, or really close to the top of the page, because links higher up on the page carry slightly more weight. Secondly, main collections and sub-collections is where you should focus next. So each main collection should link to its sub-collection and the most relevant adjacent collections. So for example, if you have a fishing reels collection, then link to spinning reels or bait running reels or overhead reels, and not to maybe fishing rods or something. It's maybe not as relevant to that specific collection. And then finally, blog content. In blog content, you want to make sure that you link 6 to 10 times from the blogs to collections and product pages. If you have more than 10, then that can start to dilute the signal of each link. And if you have fewer than 6, then you're just not necessarily optimizing and you are wasting the opportunity that you have there. And so you ideally want to make sure that the important pages on your website are ideally within 3 to 5 clicks from your homepage. So if you don't have internal links set up correctly and you can't get to, say, a product page within 3 to 5 clicks, then you need to make sure that you can set up your structure to achieve that. And by doing that, this creates a clear hierarchy that Google can crawl and understand easily. And then it concentrates authority exactly where your revenue comes from. And there is method to this madness. So similar to what we said before, too many irrelevant internal links won't achieve the desired outcome. And so it's not a matter of more links, it's a matter of relevant links that help a user and Google navigate to a page they're going to make a purchase on. So our whole goal with internal linking, as I said, is to get people to a product page, ideally within 3 to 5 clicks of your homepage. And that signals to Google and signals to the user that's where we want them to end up. That's where we're going to make the money. So blog content does play a specific and deliberate role in your internal linking strategy. So every blog you write should be a vehicle for directing authority to your most important pages. So you want to make sure that you keep links relevant. The links in your blogs should go to the most relevant collections and products for what your blog is about. So do not link to every collection on your site from every blog. So for example, a blog about best wood-fired pizza ovens should link to your wood-fired pizza oven collection, maybe your pizza oven accessory collection, and 2 to 3 specific products from that collection. And the 6 to 10 rule that I mentioned before, if you have more than 10 links, then that can start to dilute the signal of each link. Too many links in a page just doesn't necessarily work. And if you have any fewer than 6, then you're not necessarily maximizing the authority of that page and the relevance of all these internal links. So keep it relevant to the topic of the blog and not just a blanket link to everything. That 6 to 10 rule is a good kind of concept to remember when you're doing that. Now, this is a really overlooked concept when it comes to internal linking, and that's your anchor text. So anchor text is the visible text that a link appears on, and it tells Google and the user what the page you're linking to is about, and it matters more than most people realize. So strong anchor text is when you're linking to your fishing reels collection, and strong anchor text would be, say, fishing reels. And that's a strong signal to Google about what the destination page covers. And so you want to use your target keyword or a close variation where it makes sense. And also make sure that you don't necessarily just use the exact same anchor text for every single internal link. So if you're linking to your fishing reels collection from, say, 20 other pages, they all shouldn't have fishing reels as your anchor text. You want to divvy it up as well. Make sure that you have secondary keywords and things like that. Make sure they're relevant, but just don't necessarily use the same thing over and over again. Weak anchor text is when you link with, say, click here or shop now, and that just tells Google nothing useful about the page. And so these generic phrases waste the internal linking opportunity that you have. So ultimately, don't force keyword anchor text in awkwardly. When you have a sentence that naturally mentions the product category, then make that kind of keyword the link. Don't just put it in there for the sake of it. The context should feel natural to the reader, and it makes much more sense for Google as well. And then finally, link placement on the page. Where you place a link on your page also affects how much weight it carries. And so this applies to your homepage, your collection pages, and your blog posts just as equally. And so if you have a critical internal link to your most important collection, put that in the intro paragraph or in the top of the page, above the product grid, or in the very intro of your blog, and not buried in the bottom of your content. Because whatever you want Google to prioritize, you need to get that link in as early as possible, because that's the first thing it's going to read and going to follow. And so that's why you should prioritize your high important links at the very top of your page. So chapters 3, 4, and 5, which we've just covered, form a complete system. We've got technical SEO, which clears the path. We've got collection page optimization, which builds the content that actually ranks. And then we've got internal linking that directs authority to the pages that can generate revenue. All right, now we're moving on to blog content. And blog content still does have a place in 2026. But there is a difference between what works now and what doesn't. So what no longer works is top of funnel content that has been hit by AI overviews and AI results. And so how-to guides, what is articles, beginner, explainer content, they just don't work anymore. There's no point doing them in your e-commerce SEO strategy. So a blog that's like, what is a weightlifting belt, is not going to bring you buys. It's not going to bring you traffic. And so there's just not much point doing those blogs anymore. And what still does work extremely well is middle of funnel content. And that's where e-commerce brands should focus their energy. So best wood-fired pizza ovens under $500, gas pizza oven versus wood-fired, 9-carat versus 18-carat gold. Which one should I buy? These are people who end up on these pages are close to buying. And so the right blog with good internal links to your products is exactly what Google is still wanting to show to these customers. And I'll pop up a chart here proving that. And some of the e-commerce brands that we've worked with getting blog content still ranking and still getting clicks in 2026. And so our focus with blog content these days is middle of funnel content, as I just said. And so this is when someone is knowing what they want to buy, but they're still comparing options before they get there. And so they're not necessarily asking, what is this product? They're asking, which one or which product should I get? And so they know the category, they've already done the research, and they're understanding what product type they need. They're comparing options, so they want someone to help them and make the final decision between two or more choices, and they are close to actually buying. So the right content at this stage will convert directly into revenue and not just traffic, and not only through the actual content itself, but through all the other benefits blog content has. And so writing middle of funnel blog content in 2026 is not just an SEO checklist play, it's a multi-channel visibility strategy. So good SEO content and AI visibility are not separate things right now. They are essentially the same thing, and this is how middle of funnel content plays into that. And so we can drive buyer traffic by attracting visitors who are close to purchasing and not just browsing. So these readers, they convert at a significantly higher rate than top of funnel visitors. What it also does is it builds topical authority. And so this lifts your entire site in Google by signaling that your domain is the authority in your niche, benefiting every page on your website, not just your blog. And also it gets you into AI results. And so when someone types into ChatGPT, I'm looking for a weightlifting belt, can you help me find one? then it can reference this type of content. So brands with good middle of funnel blogs can show up as recommendations. So how do you actually find middle of funnel keywords? And so the process is pretty similar to what we did in chapter 2 with our keyword research. We just need to find keywords and questions that people are actively searching for. And so if you use Ahrefs, search the main product category in Ahrefs, filter by informational or commercial intent keywords, and then look for different comparison words, maybe like verse, best, top, review, which one is better. And then those can be your middle of funnel targets. Now, just make sure that you actually understand the kind of psychology behind the keyword. So even if it just says informational or commercial, doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you should be focusing on. You want to see the content that you're going to create for that piece, and if it's actually going to fit into your overall SEO strategy, and if it's actually going to drive clicks and revenue to your store. And then also you can use Google Search Console to look for queries that your site is already getting impressions for, but not necessarily ranking higher on. So if you're showing up in position 15 to 30 for a commercial keyword, then a well-written blog post targeting that keyword could move you to the first page. And so those are the low-hanging fruit keywords because Google is already seeing the relevance for your site and that keyword. And so again, Google Search Console is data directly from Google, so you may as well use it. And when you're thinking about all of this, what you want to do is connect your blog keywords to your collections. So don't just write blogs for the sake of writing blogs. Prioritize keywords that connect directly to your most important collections. And that is how you can create this compounding authority loop. And so a blog about the best wood-fired pizza oven on a site that sells pizza ovens is signaling to Google that your domain is the definitive resource for that topic, and you're becoming an expert in that overall niche of wood-fired pizza ovens. And so that is the type of content you should be looking at. Secondly, internal links will pass authority onto your collection. So the blog that internally links to the wood-fired pizza oven collection can pass that authority directly to that page that you want to actually rank for that keyword. And then the collection can benefit twice. Once from topical authority that's been built, which is, again, creating the blog around that subject, and then also from the direct internal linking equity that we are creating from the blog post to the collection pages, as we just explained in the previous section. So how do you actually write a blog post that ranks? Well, first of all, you need to actually find the correct keywords, as we described in the sections previously, but then also you need to follow a specific structure. So this isn't just about necessarily a specific writing style. It's about giving Google exactly what it needs to understand and rank your content. So this is the overall very basic structure that we need to follow. We need to have a title and intro that includes your target keyword early and also includes an internal link to the most relevant collection. So if you're making a wood-fired pizza oven type blog, link to your wood-fired pizza oven collection in that intro or in that first couple of sentences. Then you want to have clean H2s and H3s that cover your overall topic distinctively. Then you also want to make sure in your body content you're using secondary keywords naturally, you're actually answering customer queries, and you're making sure that this isn't just content for the sake of writing content, it's actually useful. And then also incorporating FAQ sections within the blog and also just answering different questions in there. So this structure will make it easy for both Google and users to understand your content, and it creates multiple opportunities to get captured in featured snippets and AI overview placements as we kind of progress into that world. So I was going to have a section here about FAQs and how you can kind of rank for featured snippets in Google, but that is actually currently changing as of 8th of May, so it's a bit later than that when this video is going out. But this is changing right now, and so I'll pop up something here that shows where Google is no longer kind of doing this and ranking, or I guess showing these featured snippets. So I'm going to skip this section because it's not as relevant anymore, but something to think about, for AI, and still a good principle to have, and maybe looking back at your other blogs that you've created to potentially update things based on this new information. So don't have as much information on this right now as it's still kind of being developed, but I'll make more videos on that in the future. So that's chapter 6. The blog content strategy is one of the areas where brands will waste the most amount of time and money writing content that doesn't necessarily convert. And so most brands will think SEO is just simply publishing blogs, which is obviously not true. But these are the brands that are still producing top of funnel content that AI has made obsolete, while their competitors are capturing buyers with middle of funnel content that actually drives revenue. So if you want a content strategy built specifically for your store and for your niche, click the first link in the description below. We can jump on a call and go through that together. Now, this takes us into chapter 7, which is link building. And this is ultimately one of the bigger sections of e-commerce SEO and how you're really going to go from page 1 to position 1. So everything we've covered so far gets you to page 1, but link building is what is going to get you to position 1. So links from external websites are votes of confidence in your site, kind of like online word of mouth, I guess. And the more quality votes you have, essentially, the more Google is going to trust you over your competitors. And so on-page SEO will get you onto page 1, essentially the foundation, but not necessarily enough to position 1. Link building is that thing that's going to push you over the edge and get you to position 1, 2, and 3. So the differentiator between two equally optimized sites is ultimately the amount of authority they have from their links. And so also the compounding authority of this, it will keep you there. So links built today will keep working for years, and it makes it much harder for you to kind of be displaced from those top positions once you have good, solid, foundational link building kind of behind your e-commerce site. So the first thing to remember here is that quality is going to beat quantity every single time when it comes to link building. So the most important thing is a handful of genuinely good links will outperform thousands of low quality ones. So this is a real client example here that I've talked about before. A competitor of my clients, or competitors, I should say, multiple of them, have thousands of backlinks, but I had a look at all of them and only 5 to 7 of them were from genuinely good websites. And when I say genuinely good, I mean relevant, niche, actually have traffic, actually have referring domains. My client, we got 22 quality domains over the last couple of months that are pointing directly from the client site, and we are outranking all those competitors who've been doing SEO for much longer and have way more backlinks because the links that we are getting are so much more relevant and niche specific. And so one relevant high quality link from a site in your niche is worth way more than hundreds of links from random or spammy websites. That's an important thing to remember. Google can tell the difference, and it factors relevance into how much weight a link carries. So two sites with identical kind of on-page optimization and everything else equal will almost always have their rankings determined by the quality of their backlink profile. And it's also absolutely possible to catch up and overtake competitors who have been ranking for years longer when you do this focused quality link building. And again, point proven right there, the competitor of my clients have been doing it for way longer, but we're managing to outrank them because we actually get proper link building strategies in place. So what actually makes a quality backlink? Well, quality backlink has 3 things. That's relevance, authority, and real traffic. And so all 3 of them do matter. And a site with high domain rating, or DR, it can still be worthless if it has no traffic and is built purely to sell links. And there's plenty of those websites on the internet, and there are plenty of backlink marketplaces will sell you links on this site. So first of all is relevance. The site linking to you is in the same or closely related niche. So a fitness brand getting a link from a fitness blog will carry far more weight than a link from a random tech site. And Google can understand that and understands the topical relevance, and it factors this into how much it trusts that link and how much authority it's going to pass on. Which takes us on to the second most important thing, which is authority. A link from a DR30 site with real traffic is worth far more than a DR60 site purely made to sell links. And so authority of those links will also help the authority of your website. And then ultimately, real traffic is such an important thing. So it's the clearest signal that a website is legitimate to Google. And if it has no organic traffic, Google already knows that it's not a real resource and that a link from that website just doesn't carry as much value, no matter how high the DR is or anything like that. If you don't have real traffic on that website and on the specific pages as well, which is a great bonus, then it's not going to do as well for your link building strategy. So when it comes to e-commerce, there are kind of 3 links that we focus on. And first is link insertion. So that's when you reach out to a website that already has relevant content and you ask them to add a link into that page, linking back to your site. This is really effective because the link goes onto a page that is already ranking, already indexed, already getting traffic. And then the quality depends entirely on you doing the proper outreach, not buying from bulk platforms. So link insertions is pretty much like all we do at the moment with our e-commerce brands because we just find it just gets the best results. And it is, for some reason, ultimately cheaper than guest posts, which we'll get to in a second. So that's the one that I focus on the most with e-commerce brands I work with. The second thing is digital PR. So this is where you get your brand featured in publications, news sites, high authority blogs in your niche. The links from digital PR tend to be from sites with very high domain ratings and genuine traffic. But because of that, the cost is much higher and it's a lot harder to get these kind of links. So there are companies that do proper PR, digital PR packages, and you'll be paying thousands of dollars to just do like a little package and kind of get a press release. So this is something that goes kind of beyond your SEO as well. You want to do obviously PR for your brand. And so doing it online, getting links from those news sites is going to be super highly effective. Finally is guest posts. So writing a guest post is basically you are creating a blog for another website. You're inserting your link into that blog and then they're publishing it. So it's not something we do as much anymore because the quality varies a lot depending on the site and the site that you choose. So you need to be selective on where you're publishing that guest post, and also just avoid any platform that sells bulk guest posts because, again, they're just kind of doing that to make money. And so, again, even though I've put this here, this isn't one that we focus on as much anymore. We're really mainly focusing on link insertions because it's just the most effective way and the best bang for your buck, I feel, with link building. So you also need to understand where to distribute your links, and where you point a link from another page on your website matters as much as the links where they're coming from itself, basically. So a common mistake is building links always to your homepage, or worse, directly to like a product page. And so the recommended link distribution that I kind of follow is 40% of your links should be pointed to your homepage, 30% to your collection page, and 30% to your blog posts. And the reason I say never build links to product pages is because it doesn't necessarily look natural. And so, external sites don't necessarily always link to a product page. So it shows Google that you are trying to manipulate, the website's ranking, basically, which technically goes against Google's policy. And so your internal linking structure already pushes authority from collections and blogs down to your products. And so getting links to those pages will benefit those products directly without having to actually buy a link or place a link specifically towards a product page. And then also for Australian brands, which is where I'm from, you need to have this extra consideration of mixing in .com.au links alongside your standard .com links. So obviously, because we're in Australia, there's less chance and less kind of supply to get these type of links. But the .au to .au authority signal helps with your local relevance. And it's super important for Australian backlinks, for Australian brands in building the AU authority, basically. So that's something to remember for Australian brands, that you want to make sure you are getting that local relevance with your link building. So there are a lot of ways that you can get ripped off with your link building. So knowing what to avoid is just as important as knowing what to do. So first of all, a couple of red flags that I think here are set packages for link building. So anyone that's offering a set number of links per month is a red flag, in my opinion, because real link building is about building the best available links for your budget that month. And so a set package where you say you're getting 2 links a month or 4 links a month or 10 links a month, that is a deliverable list. They're going to make sure they hit that. And so what they're doing is then kind of getting you on websites that aren't necessarily relevant because they're trying to hit a quota. So set monthly packages in terms of a number of links, I don't think is necessarily the best option. So secondly is Fiverr backlinks and cheap link packages. So these are typically links on PBNs and spammy sites that Google has already identified as low quality. So too many of these can trigger a Google penalty. So avoid doing that kind of in general. Like, I would just never recommend going for cheap packages or Fiverr backlinks. And going on to the last one, going cheap and getting burnt. So most expensive mistake brands can make when doing link building themselves is spending money on low quality links, seeing no results, deciding SEO does not work, and then giving up. And then your competitors who are doing it properly are going to continue to climb the rankings, and then the gap just becomes way harder to close. And so ultimately going cheap with link building is just not worth it, because good quality links, they're not cheap. It does cost money to get good quality links. So just be wary of that. So that's link building as a whole, and you kind of now have everything you need to start ranking. So if you've made it this far into the video, then the strategy is clear. The tactics are proven, and the only question now is whether you're going to execute yourself or have someone do it for you. So if you want someone to do all of this for you, click the first link in the description below. You can book a call with me. We can go through your site together and show you what it looks like to work together in building organic SEO as your next profitable revenue channel. So moving on to the final chapter here, which is tracking results and compounding growth. Now I wanted to add this one here to actually show how you can measure SEO properly, because SEO is not about keyword rankings and traffic volume. And so those are the wrong metrics to obsess over. And so if you get a jump from position 8 to 5, then yes, that's progress, but it's not telling you if the revenue is increasing. And also if traffic is going up, that doesn't necessarily mean revenue is increasing either. I've seen many brands that have, thousands of monthly organic visitors, but no traffic, and the complete opposite, where they have very little, but they got high intent traffic. So therefore they're making lots of money from it. And so the right metric to look at is organic search revenue. That's what I focus on with all my brands that I work with. And the way we track that is in Shopify, you can go into marketing, filter by first click attribution, channel Google, and then type organic. You can also look in Shopify again in the analytics section and go sales by referrer and look at Google search. These two will probably give you slightly different numbers, but those are the kind of ones that we like to look at. And also in GA4, you can go into the reports, generate leads, traffic acquisition, and then filter by total revenue for organic search. And so those are the ways that we look at how a store is actually getting affected by the SEO that we're doing. And ultimately that number is going to continue to increase if you do SEO properly. The other way to track results is in Google Search Console. So this is actually the keywords and the rankings that we're looking at. So it's still important, obviously. Revenue is the main thing that we're looking at, but we want to make sure that we are getting more traffic to your website. And so you can sort by impressions to find keywords where you're showing up for but not getting clicks. And so those are potentially opportunities to improve the pages and push up the ranking. You can sort by clicks to see which pages are actually driving traffic to your site right now. And then also check monthly. Keywords are moving up and other things like that, which means that your optimization is working. And so pages are getting impressions, but no clicks. That might mean that metadata, meta title, and descriptions might need improving. So just have a look at all this data. You can figure out different things and see how pages are acting. And, it's obviously easy to kind of look, day by day, but SEO obviously takes a long time to work. But when you look, month 1, month 2, month 3, you can see the results starting to take effect. And so those are the things that we look at when we're tracking results, and also the compounding growth. And it's also really important to understand the compounding effect. Now, this is obviously very easy upon reflection once you've actually gone through it. But if you understand that you do this properly and this will happen for your store, then it makes it so much easier to kind of invest in SEO. So it doesn't produce results in a straight line. And the growth curve for SEO will actually look a little bit different to what you've seen in all your other marketing channels. And so this is kind of like a realistic timeline of what you would expect. And so for month 1 to 3, you're building the foundation. You might have some small keywords moving, some slight uptick in impressions and maybe some traffic, and also some minor revenue increases. So this is normal, and it's not a sign that strategy isn't working. It just takes time. Like, things don't happen overnight when it comes to SEO. And so that month, first to third month, those things are kind of happening. Then you get into month 3 to 6, and this is when things start to become a little bit more visible. So keywords will move to page 1, organic revenue will start to increase a bit more noticeably. And this is proven with brands that I've worked with, where we've gone from 3 to 6K and 16 to 23K during this 3 to 6 month period. Then you go into month 6 to 12, and this is where the compounding starts to become a bit more undeniable. And so one brand that I work with went from $83,000 to $220,000 in the 12 months that we worked with at the very beginning. And most of that growth came in that second half, that 6 to 12 month period. And this is happening with every brand that I'm working with, where basically the second half of the first year that we work together is when the results really start to grow. And then you get into, the multiple years of doing SEO, and every link that you built in month 2 is still working. Every collection page you optimize in week 3 is still ranking, and every blog that you write in month 4 is still attracting links. And this is why brands that stop at month 3 miss this entire kind of revenue growth and compounding effect. And it's important to understand this. So when you invest in SEO, you know that those results are going to come if you're investing with someone that actually knows what they're doing. And so what does ongoing SEO actually look like? So once you've built all the foundation, ongoing SEO is about 3 things, and that's creating new content, iterating on existing content, and then building links consistently. So new content, adding new collection pages as your product range grows, and maybe you find more opportunities, writing new blogs, targeting middle funnel keywords. Every new page is an opportunity to capture more buyer traffic, and every new blog is another landing page for backlinks and authority to signal to Google. Then also iterating on existing content. So going back to your collection pages and updating them based on the different data that you've seen. If a page is ranking in position 6, look at what pages above it are doing, why you're not necessarily pushing to that first page, and iterate on the existing content, iterate the page and do different things there. And then finally, consistent link building. This is where you're really going to see the growth. So monthly budget spent on the best available links in your niche. That's the cost of doing SEO. And then the revenue from that is going to generate and keep compounding the longer that you do this. And so a real ROI example, a brand that I work with saw a 4x return on investment within 2 months of starting, which is great. But then by month 11, that same brand saw a 45x return on investment. So the input stayed roughly the same, but the results just keep compounding and keep growing. And that is true with SEO, and that is how e-commerce SEO can work for your brand. And so the brands that see the biggest long-term results are the ones that treat SEO as a permanent part of their marketing strategy, not a one-time project and not something that you do for 3 months and then stop, but an ongoing investment that gets more valuable over time. So the cost of doing SEO does not necessarily increase as your results grow, but the revenue it generates keeps compounding the longer that you do it. So if you start now, you stay consistent, and then let the kind of math work in your favor, you are going to be successful with e-commerce SEO. So there you go. That is the full course, start to finish, my full SEO process for ranking stores higher in Google and getting them more money from organic Google search. So again, the complete framework: first, keyword research, then technical SEO, collection page optimization, internal linking, blog content, link building, and then tracking and compounding all of that growth. Hopefully you found something useful here. And if you want to make sure that you actually grow on Google and make more money with e-commerce SEO, you can book a call down below. The first link in the description. Book a call directly with me. We can go through your site together and see how we can grow your store with e-commerce SEO. And finally, the brands that win, they're going to implement this full process properly. They're going to stay consistent through the compounding phase. They're going to build real authority with quality links, and they're going to end up owning their category in Google. And the brands that are going to stay stuck will skip these steps and cut corners on links and other things. They're going to give up before the compounding kicks in. They're going to keep paying for every single click forever, and they're never going to build a lasting organic presence. So nothing in this process is held back. This is exactly what I've done for every brand I've worked with, and the brands that follow this are the ones that are going to end up ranking first. So as I said, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Book a call down below, and I'll see you in the next one.